It hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but there is a fight going on over a huge power line that is supposed to run right through New Mexico. The latest proposed route is along the northern edge of the White Sands Missile Range. The Army hates that and says it could actually doom the missile range and its thousands of jobs. But backers of the power line claim that more delays in this project could also cost thousands of jobs and hurt the nation's power grid. Pilot reporter Bob Martin has this story from the unique perspective of Sky News 13.
This is the proposed Sunzia power line route. The land here, about 50 miles southeast of Albuquerque, is a mix of public and private. The project would look like this. It's one of President Obama's top 10 priorities for improving America's power grid and cutting back on the use of fossil fuels. New wind and solar plants planned for eastern New Mexico would send power to Arizona, all creating thousands of construction and maintenance jobs. For 4 years, the BLM has led environmental studies to find a route.
This being on the top 10 really motivates us to really do our job, do it really well, but get to a decision point as soon as we can.
The issue is up here in the sky.
Flying here along the proposed power line route, we're actually right at the edge of airspace that White Sands Missile Range uses for flight training and for testing weapons.
The north end of the Army's White Sands Missile Range property is south of US 380 between Socorro and Carrizozo. To the north, public and private land. Over this area is a block of extra range airspace. The proposed power line borders this airspace from near Corona, north of Gran Quivira National Monument, and dodging the Sevieta Wildlife Refuge. The Defense Department says both the height of the lines and their electronic emissions would hamper some new weapons tests. Simulated enemy missiles would zip across this area at near treetop level, trying to avoid new anti-missile systems. The Army says if enemy missiles have to pop up over power lines, they lose their stealth, and emissions from the lines confuse anti-missile sensors. The Army wants the power lines either buried or moved farther north to near Berlin. White Sands says the range offers a unique testing environment which cannot be replicated elsewhere. If testing cannot be done here, jobs and revenue associated with this testing will also be lost. Critics and a scathing newspaper editorial urge the BLM to get its head out of the sand and move the power line. Others, like Senator Martin Heinrich, an engineer and former House Armed Services Committee member, feel there is room for compromise.
Anywhere in the world, even when I've visited places like Afghanistan, you see these big transmission lines and you have to operate around them.
It also turns out the power line route has already been moved for the Army several times. 4 years ago, and at the Army's suggestion, this is where it was, near Highway 380. Then, for more distance from electronics sites, the Army asked it be moved here. Later, another change of mind, and the Army said it really needed to be moved to the edge of the extra airspace. BLM expanded studies, and the route was placed where the Army suggested. Now, with environmental studies complete, the Army wants the line moved again, much farther north, or buried. Delay for more study, at least a year. Cost to investors, millions.
At what point do we set the goalpost in concrete? And I think with the most recent round, I realized that that's probably not going to happen, at least not immediately.
Sunzia says burying the massive power lines is not an option, and they might just walk away if delays and costs keep piling up. Supporters worry a dead project would scare off future investors.
Our entire state can't remain completely undeveloped. We need to show that we can get transmission built in New Mexico, and we can develop the private sector resources and the jobs.
Both the military and the BLM say they believe a compromise can still be found. A final decision is expected by October. In Sky News 13, Bob Martin, near Socorro.
Sunzia says if a final route is approved, it hopes to have the new power lines up in less than 3 years at a cost of $1.5 billion.